Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome. Hello. Ugh. I get a haircut this week, and it's a good thing because my hair is just not cooperating. It's all kinds of poofy and sticking up, and it is beyond time. How's everybody doing? I am finally about to, I'd say, 80% better. Whatever this cold flu thing was, so I'm going to have to mute periodically because I still have this cough that won't go away. But wanted to get back because I missed hanging out with you all, and I have a bajillion things to do for work, and this helps get me in work mode for the day and for the week. So happy to be here with you today on this fine Monday. We're starting to get a little bit of fall in the air. Marching band competition starts this week. It cools off in the evening, so it's still about 80 degrees during the day, so nothing to complain about there. Miss Charlotte is here with us. Charlotte, say hi. She's getting groomed today because she's a fluffy mop. And this week, she will pass off her public access test and start moving on to task training, which is super exciting. Heat wave. We usually are okay about this time of the year. If it stays above like 70 degrees, we're actually excited about that because it means that when it's not going to start snowing. I try not to complain if it doesn't snow before Halloween. Trick-or-treating in the snow is no fun. Last year it snowed before Halloween and didn't stop snowing until June. So I am not prepared and not excited about another long winter, but I did pick up some table topics. So we have a little bit of an opener and for breaks between to do something a little fun. So I'm going to bust this open. I have some other ones that I forgot and left upstairs. So we're going to go with these not a chance ones. I have no idea what's in them because I haven't previewed this one. So it'll be exciting. Put me on the spot a little bit. Oh, I'm going to mute for 1 second. Excuse me. And we'll ask a little question. We'll do a little icebreaker, and then we'll jump into some of today's topics. I have a great article that I've been saving up on twice exceptionality. Really interesting topic and affects a lot of kids and adults. And then we'll go from there, have a couple of other possible topic ideas that we can shift to from there. We're going to start with that article. All right, let's see what this goes. It's not a good one for me. Too pop culture. Save that one for later. I'm going to need a little more prep for that question. All right. Which bad table members send you into orbit? Okay, so there's a couple of different answers for this question because it depends on where I am and who I'm with. I can tell you at my house, there are two things at the dinner table that make me absolutely crazy. One is getting my children to eat their food with a fork. It seems so simple. And, there's a lot of foods that we eat with our hands, and I don't have a problem with that. My children, one in particular, I won't single him out, but things like spaghetti, and he's not a baby, right? Like, it's okay for babies. This child is definitely old enough. Again, I don't want to single him out. I don't want to give any clues as to which child it is, except to say that he is most definitely old enough to not be eating pasta with greasy things with his hands and then wiping his hands on his clothing. I cannot get him to stop doing that to save my life. He is going to graduate from my house and go out on dates and be in a restaurant picking up noodles with his fingers and wiping it on his clothes because he does not see any problem with it. And it drives me absolutely insane. Mostly because it's also a kid who doesn't like sauces, which you'd think would be better, but he puts butter on everything. So when he's wiping his hands on his clothes, it's those like oily spots that I cannot get out of his clothing. So there's that one. The other one is just that my kids are so picky that anytime I make food, at least one of them is going to be making really like not just like, oh, that's gross, but like going at my table intentionally. And it makes me really mad when I take time to cook, because I don't always. And they are at the food that I've made. So those are my ones at home. I think in a restaurant, like, is there table manners? Like, if I was out on a date, I don't know. My husband has good table manners, and I haven't been on a date with anyone else in more than 20 years. So, I can't think of one. I know it would be funny if it wasn't every single time I cook dinner. And I'm like, you guys, and I'm not making like gross stuff. Like, I'm a decent cook, but I'm not making like, I don't know, the things that used to make me gag growing up was like when I was little, I would make quiche and the texture of it I could not handle. But like my parents talk about the things they had to eat growing up, and it was like tongue, and I'm not making like liver and onions, right? I'm making like baked chicken and like the things they complain about. It's like, I'm like, you guys, this is normal food. This is not anything fancy. Like mashed potatoes. None of my kids will eat mashed potatoes. It's like, I'm like, you guys, you got to figure this out. You have to figure out how to eat normal food. So yeah, we like are trying really hard to eat healthier, eat more at home. I'm trying to get more variety of nutrients into our family, so we're not eating processed stuff. And they are not cooperating. So those are my table manner issues. I just generally being rude to whoever's cooked the food, whether that's at my mom's house, and my mom like bends over backwards to make food for the kids that they'll like. And so when they do it there, then I get. The other thing is one of my kids will like speed eat. Like he eats, like shovels all his food in and then leaves the table and is like, I'm out of here. And another one of my kids will take an hour to eat any meal. And so we have like the one who's like out of there, and then the other, it's like, come on, keep going, just take another bite. Different types of ADHD in our house. But the first one, when we're like out, or if we're at a family's, like at my mom's, and the purpose of the family meal, like a Sunday dinner with your cousins and aunts and whatever, is to like sit and chat around the table, and he'll want to like bolt in 5 minutes. And so that one affects us sometimes too, but not usually at home, because at home I'm like, oh, just stop complaining and go away now. It's not good. Trying to eat dinner together as a family is tricky. We got out of the habit for a number of years because two of my kids were involved in extremely competitive baseball. And so they always had practices and games at night. So we didn't often have time, or if we did have time, it was like 9:30 at night to like sit down and eat dinner together as a family. Um, so now we're having to make up for not teaching them those skills when they were younger for several years. No one's playing baseball anymore. We have some other activities, but there are definitely more days of the week that we're all home to have dinner, which requires me to meal plan, which is not easy for me, but there we are. So let's do a swoop and let's get into our first article of the day. All right, let me pull up today's article. Called Cognitive Characteristics of Intellectually Gifted Children with a Diagnosis of ADHD. Now, a lot of the topics that we talk about, a lot of the research that we're going to read is done with kids because, like we've mentioned previously, they wouldn't even really start doing research on other populations until about 10 years ago. This is a relatively new study, but these things apply to adults and kids as well. Twice exceptionality is something that, excuse me, is not very well understood in really any communities. There's a very small number of even psychologists who know how to deal with or assess for twice exceptionality. In schools, they do a really terrible job of helping these kids. It's hard to get services because they are performing, on grade level. They're not behind, even though for them that is behind, because I guess I should first of all explain what twice exceptionality is. Twice exceptionality means gifted in the definition of psychology, which is high IQ, high cognitive ability. We don't usually call it IQ anymore, but that's kind of a term that most people are aware of. And plus having a disability of some sort. So it could be ADHD, autism, a specific learning disability in one particular area. Twice exceptional kids, they tend to have even more than, so gifted kids in general will have what's called asynchronous development, places where they're ahead in certain areas and not so much in others. Twice exceptional kids tend to have even bigger gaps in that, in those discrepancies in their functioning and in their abilities. This asynchronous development is what can make it really hard to get the right services, get them in the right classrooms, because they may not necessarily perform well on the types of tests that they use to determine who goes into a gifted class, or they might have behavior issues that prevent teachers from referring them for gifted programming. So, twice exceptional kids tend to get kind of double the dose of the cons of both of their conditions, right? There's pros and cons to all of those things. ADHD, you have great creative strengths and things like that, but the behavioral and executive functioning deficits are problematic. When it comes to gifted kids, they tend to have similar executive function deficits. It comes with their own set of cons. People think, oh, it's a gifted kid, everything comes easy to them. Well, gifted kids tend to struggle more socially. Because they don't relate to their typical peers as well. They, that things like hyperfocus, selective interest, things like that. When it comes to truly gifted kids, not just the smart kids and the high achievers. And a lot of gifted programs tend to gear towards those high achievers and the, kind of the smart kids, but not necessarily see the problems that come with those gifted kids because they have these other drawbacks. So this article I found really interesting as it talks about specifically twice exceptional kids who have ADHD. So the characteristics on cognitive testing, some of the drawbacks, and interesting trends in gifted kids who have ADHD. As we've talked about before, anything neurodevelopment, they tend to have a lot of comorbidity. So ADHD, autism, giftedness, learning disabilities. If you have one, it's very common to have one of the others, more common than it's more common to have more than one of those things than it is to just have one of them. So twice exceptional ADHD kids, it's really, especially the inattentive subtype. Again, they tend to be misidentified, and not necessarily get the right services because they don't necessarily qualify for special ed without having to fight for it because they're performing typical to their peers. But they do tend to have more behavior problems, higher rates of dropout, things like that. So let's talk about this article a little bit. So I'll kind of explain a little bit how these research articles tend to go for those of you who don't have a background in academic research. Depending on what your degree program is, or if you did, technical training or whatever, if you may or may not have had to read through a lot of this kind of research. This is specifically like psychological, sociological, those types of the social science research. The articles tend to look a specific way, so I'll kind of explain research, kind of like, when you're looking at legal documents on other channels. There's a structure to them. There's places you can kind of scroll through. We'll skip over some of the things, but the abstract here is just kind of a brief summary for someone who's browsing through to see what the study consisted of, and some of the basic results without having to read through, sometimes hundreds of pages of research. Hold on one second. I got to respond to something. Okay, sorry, work stuff. Okay, so some children may be intellectually gifted and yet experience behavioral and academic difficulties. We examined 82 twice exceptional children having a general ability index, GAI, kind of another word for overall IQ, but it takes into consideration, it weights certain things over others. It was done on the WISC, the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children 4, which is a great cognitive test. It's the one we primarily use in our office when we're testing for cognitive. Its only drawback is it doesn't necessarily, if you are like profoundly gifted, like talking 160 plus, it ceilings out. So for those kind of kids, a test like a Stanford Binet is more appropriate, but for 99.99% of the population, a WISC, or the adult version is the WACE, or the preschool version is the WIPSI. Wechsler Intelligence Scales are fairly standard. So they gave him a WISC and then diagnosed with ADHD. They accounted for 8.8% of a large sample of children with ADHD, which is twice as high as the proportion of intellectually gifted children in a typical population. So this little bit of research was interesting to me, and we'll read more about that when we get down into some of the other results. This overrepresentation does not reflect a misdiagnosis of ADHD, as these children showed the typical features predicted on the grounds of data regarding the ADHD sample, including lower scores in working memory and processing speed, combined with the inclusion criteria for giftedness. So what that's saying is they don't believe that the larger percentage of gifted kids in the ADHD group means that they were misdiagnosed with ADHD, because their scores followed a profile that is common with people with ADHD, which is lower working memory and processing speed. That's fairly, it's not always the case. For example, one of my kids who is severely ADHD has an insanely high processing speed. But it is one of those things that if you're doing an evaluation and you find ADHD and then you look at the cognitive scores and those two things are low, it kind of confirms the diagnosis, or it can be a flag to be like, let's look and make sure there's not ADHD going on, just because it's such a common profile for people with ADHD to have lower working memory and lower processing speed. Based on information concerning intellectually gifted children with either a specific learning disorder or typical development, we observed that these characteristics of intelligence are similar to those seen in SLD, specific learning disorder, but not in typical development, irrespective of whether two ADHD children had a comorbid SLD. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So beginning of a research article, you'll have an abstract, then it will go in and tell you more about the participants so that you can get an idea. One of the things to look for in research here is going to be sample size. So if there's not a large enough sample size, take all the research that you read with a grain of salt. So that's going to be the first thing when you're evaluating whether this research is good, bad, helpful, trustworthy or not, is going to be sample size. So this one has a decent sample size, 1,051 children. It's looking to me like this study was a reanalysis of results from another study. So they took kind of the sample set and ran some additional testing rather than going out and finding their own 1,000 kids to test. That's common in these kinds of research, is once there's a data set that's already been collected, to use that same data to run kind of different analyses to see what other information you can get from the data rather than starting from scratch. There's another type of research called a meta-analysis, which you'll see often in the social sciences and psychology and sociology in particular, where they will basically run statistical analysis on a large group of studies on the same topic. So they're basically compiling all this data into one more meaningful chunk. And meta-analyses are a really good way to review research. Hi, Koala. Thanks for popping in. And replay crew is always appreciated. If you have a chance to like the video on your way out, that helps too. All right, I'm going to star this comment so that we can talk about it later, but I don't want to get distracted right now. So 1,051 children, age range from 6 to almost 17, with the mean age being 10.3, as the standard deviation of 2.58. We can talk more about the normal curve and standard deviations also. In fact, we'll probably do that when we get down to talking about these cognitive scores. If you don't know about the normal curve and what those numbers look like, it can be tricky to read these kinds of results. Different geographical areas. So the study was people in Italy and different types, private versus public. The clinicians are experts on ADHD. So they found in that sample size that 82 children were twice exceptional with ADHD. And that accounted for 8.6% of the sample. Intelligence is assumed to follow a normal distribution. That's the standard bell curve. So let's look at that real quick. Pull up an image that will help us. trying to find one that I like. Nope, not that one. Sorry, give me 1 second. I should have pulled this up beforehand, but I didn't. How's this one? Is it readable? Not really. Trying to find one that isn't blurry. Okay, this one's not bad. Let's switch to this tab real quick. Okay, so see if I can zoom it in a little bit. Oh, it's a little blurry. Well, this will be good enough. So this is how all of the tests, well, I shouldn't say all, most of the psychological tests that are given for cognitive ability, for neuropsych testing, those sorts of tests are normed. They're normed on a normal distribution curve. Looks like this, where average is a score of 100 and a standard deviation is 15. So on a normal curve, 50% of the population is going to fall into this, well, more than 50%, but most of the population is going to fall into this area here, which is going to be the 85 to 115 scores. And then for every 15, that's a standard deviation away. And so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're talking about cognitive scores. So average range is 85 to 115. When they're talking about gifted, they're usually talking about, in this study, they're talking about 125 and above. That's typical for like how schools identify gifted kids. In traditional nomenclature, it's going to be 130 and above are considered gifted. And then this is so we got the average range, got above average range. We've got significantly above average range and extremely above average range. And same thing on the other side below. Now, the difference in cognitive scores and these things below here is you don't really get scores that are this low. Mild mental retardation, diagnostically, is usually a score of like 70 or above. Intellectual disability right there. So if you're kind of in that, really below 80, they're going to start looking at that. Anything below 70, you're going to have a really hard time functioning generally. And 70 to 80 is, low, what we call a low IQ, low cognitive ability. And those kids are going to require a lot of help. If you want to think about people who go to college, to be successful in college, really, most people who are college graduates tend to be kind of in the 110 and above range. Does that mean if you're below that you can't go to college? Of course not. It's just information. It says, oh, interesting. Most people who are college graduates are kind of above this range. Graduate school, we're looking at 150 or above, or 115 or above average. Of course, there's a spread there, right? And this is how these sorts of tests are normed. So when they're talking about, this is a normal bell curve, and if there's something different than what shows up in a normative sample, they'll show you kind of a shifted bell to the right or left. It's just a way to analyze data. So we're going to switch off of that tab and go back to this one. So the 82 children who were 2E ADHD accounted for 8.6 of all of the sample. Intelligence is assumed to follow a normal distribution. So only about 46 of the sample of 948 with ADHD should have had a GAI over 125. So the normal distribution would be only 4.9% of those people with ADHD would be expected to be above a 125 GAI. So ADHD is more so giftedness is more common basically in people with ADHD than it is in the normal population, according to this study. So, gifted children were overrepresented in the ADHD sample, even considering 120. So, when they dropped down to 120 to see what the numbers did there, 15% of these kids with ADHD were above a GAI of 120 versus 9.3% in a normal population. I thought that was super interesting. So, the study offers new and clear information on the intellectual characteristics of 2E ADHD children who are twice exceptional, as they are intellectually gifted and have ADHD. The study focused on 4 issues. The first concerned the general characteristics of our 2E ADHD group. Oh, sorry, this isn't sharing, is it? There we go. Although our sample is considerably large, our results should be considered with caution because a larger sample is probably needed to generalize regarding the characteristics of the 2E population. So in research, they're going to show their results. They're going to show their process, what they got. And then in the discussion section, they're going to talk about what do we think this means? And are there any problems with this research? Is there any areas of further research needed to kind of determine, was this a fluke? Was this just an issue with the sample size, or with this particular sample? Do these results generalize? Can they be repeated? So if you're going to just read a piece of research and you don't want to have to read through the whole thing, I recommend you read the abstract. Skim through the introduction, because the introduction is where they're going to present any previous research they've found that relates to the subject and how and kind of give the why we needed to do this particular study. But it can be kind of long because it's going to be a literature review of pretty much every piece of research that's ever been done on the subject. But it can be interesting and a good place to find other articles on the same topic. And then you can kind of skip down to their results and scan that a little bit and then go into the discussion, and it's going to tell you more about those results and it's going to tell you what the limitations are. So they're saying right here, obviously, yeah, we had a large sample size. However, probably need even bigger to see if this is something that is actually true in the general population, or if there was some unknown variable in this particular study. So this website doesn't have the entire article. We just kind of went over the abstract and the discussion there. But I found it really interesting that they found that in this group of gifted kids, there was more ADHD in that group than in the general population. We all know ADHD kids are brilliant. But now we have a little data to show that, yeah, these twice exceptional kids or these gifted kids have a higher chance of having ADHD than a kid who is not gifted. So pull that off for a minute. If there's any questions, pop them in the chat. But I thought that was a really interesting little piece of research and gave us an opportunity to kind of talk about how do you evaluate whether research is good. Sorry, brain. I am not 100% better. And so the brain fog is higher than normal. And I don't remember if I took my ADHD meds today. So that's probably not helping. Mute for a second. Okay. Excuse me. So I don't see any questions about the research or evaluating the research. So I'm going to bring this one up real quick. So the diet is going well. I mean, I haven't been able to test a lot of foods because I've been sick, but I am testing cocoa powder today, and I don't think I've ever been more excited about anything, at least not in a very long time, because I'm also nervous, a little anxious about it, because if I can't have chocolate in my life, ugh, I can't think about it. But so I put some cocoa powder in my coconut yogurt this morning with some raspberries, and it was heavenly. And then we'll do day 2 of test tomorrow and hope that I can tolerate it. But things are going well that way. Yeah, it's not just a UK problem. So I think generally in the UK, twice exceptional kids are not catered to. It's not just in the UK. It is everywhere. So it's hard because we've had a handful of amazing gifted teachers and been really, really fortunate that in the gifted program where my kids have attended, their teachers are amazing at working with twice exceptional kids. Um, most of them, not all of them. And the ones that weren't, it was extremely frustrating. And we had some issues and had to fight some battles without releasing too much information about my particular children. And the ongoing situation there, we have had to file complaints. We have had to, we've had some rough years. We've also had some incredible years with some of the most amazing teachers I've ever seen in my life. And I've been around a lot of teachers. As you know, a student, as a teacher, as a parent, and there's 2 teachers in particular that we have had the pleasure of having our kids 2 of our kids be in their classes, and life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And then we've had years where they did not understand them. They even at the district level made comments that I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, how are you in charge of gifted programming for the school district? Because you have no idea how this works." Um, yeah, can't necessarily share any details on that situation because it's ongoing, but, like, blown away by the lack of knowledge about these kids, um, and how to help them. They do get, a lot of referrals to gifted programs are done by teacher referral. They don't those general ed teachers in particular don't understand this about gifted kids, that it comes with these social difficulties, it comes with these behavioral difficulties. Um, so they don't refer those kids for testing when a lot of the time it is a result of being bored in class, um, that causes a lot of those behavioral problems, and getting them into a proper classroom that accommodates for their disabilities and provides what they need for their giftedness, their strengths, can really preempt a lot of those behavior problems. Our school district doesn't start any gifted programming until 3rd grade, and we are currently fighting to keep it in 3rd grade. They almost eliminated the 3rd grade last year and just went to 4th grade because it's not available everywhere in 3rd grade, only at a couple of the programs. And I joined in with some parents to fight on that because it is oftentimes white knuckling it to get to that gifted program, and then your kid can be successful. And these kids, by the time they get there in 3rd grade, they've had 3 years of being constantly in trouble. And it is a result of them not being in an appropriate classroom and having a teacher who understands both sides of their needs and is able to accommodate for them and give them the enrichment that they need, Gifted programming gets the short end of the stick a lot of times. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Because it's considered optional. Now, there are some states in the US, I don't know what it looks like in the rest of the world. My knowledge about the education system is limited to what we have in the US, but gifted programming is not mandated by the federal government the way that special ed is. There are states, individual states who do have mandated programs, who do individualized education plans for gifted. My state does not. There are not many. There are a few. So gifted programming tends to be kind of optional. It's not considered, because it doesn't have federal funding, it's not required by the law. When they're looking at budget cuts, which they always are, Utah is like 50th in spending per capita on education, which is ridiculous because we have so many kids. So when budget cuts happen, gifted programming often is on the chopping block because it's not required, even though it is kind of critical for these kids. So it's frustrating. And then the twice exceptional kids, again, are the ones who really suffer. They're the ones who really, for a lot of kids, it would be great if they had it. For twice exceptional kids, it can affect their mental health in huge ways. So yeah, I think it's, in schools, it's a lot of, well, you get the grade, so you're okay, I guess. But what happens is a lot of them don't get the grades. They go on testing. It's like, well, you're capable of it. You're just being lazy. You're not working hard. You're, refusing to do the things. And that happens with gifted kids because they get bored and they're like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this pointless assignment? I already know this stuff. And they don't get good grades. Giftedness does not mean well performing. In fact, high above average kids do a lot better in school than gifted kids. If you look at the stats and the research on that. We don't have gifted programs the way you described, but teachers are required to make work a balanced level of challenging and accessible to all children. That's the goal, right? But, and maybe this is just a US problem because of the way that they do end of year testing and the way that parents or the schools are evaluated on those test scores. The high stakes testing at the end of the year, right? Everyone has to meet some limited proficiency level. And if they're not, then the schools lose some funding. There's like repercussions to the district if not enough kids are passing these end of year tests. So when it comes to in the classroom with a classroom teacher, yes, this is like the goal. All students should be, working on their, in their zone of proximal development, right? That are being challenged enough, but not too much, so that they're moving forward. But when the end of the year test doesn't reflect those who are above, it's just, are you proficient? The ones who are not reaching proficient, the low ones, are going to get the majority of the attention. Obviously, they need the attention too, but what happens is those kids on the other end don't get what they need. It's very frustrating because the outcomes for those kids can be so poor, with dropouts, with mental health, with just not achieving their potential. And these are the kids whose brains think differently. They're incredibly smart. They're the inventors. They're the ones that can really change the world, right? And they are dropping out of school. They're just barely passing. I mean, we need those kids, right? So, I mean, if you look at like people like the Steve Jobs of the world, right? These people who we know have these brilliant brains, think about like Einstein, who failed math, right? You're looking at these they aren't successful in traditional school programs. Okay, so some of them manage to get out and still make a huge difference, but how many of the difference makers potentially are not making it through because we're not providing for their needs? It's a problem. We've had to fight for all of our kids, for them to get accommodations for their needs and to be able to get into academic programs that meet that side of their need. And for them to be seen for what they are, which is brilliant kids who struggle with executive functioning, not lazy kids who refuse to work, right? It's an issue. My kids are brilliant, and they, we've had to take them out of gifted and honors classes because it wasn't a good fit with the teacher, or the executive function load was too high. And there wasn't people there to kind of support those needs. So we've been able to fight for our kids because we know the system, but not all parents are able to do that or even know how. And it's genetic, it's a family issue. So the parents themselves oftentimes have similar issues. So I will talk about choice exceptionality and these kids and how to get them help frequently, because I'm in the trenches in it, number one, but also because the stakes are higher. The difference between success and complete and utter failure and destruction. Most kids can kind of get by, right? These kids can't. If they don't get what they need, it's the difference between thriving and depression, self-deletion rates, substance abuse, dropout rates, and incarceration. For the brightest minds that we have, it's not okay. We have to figure out how to serve these kids better. So that is something we do a lot, is advocating and teaching schools and about twice exceptional kids, teaching teachers, general ed teachers, how to identify the gifted kids, even the ones that, struggle with these issues. So, all right, stepping off of that soapbox, let's swoop and all right, let's take a break, talk about something fun. Should we do another topic, table topic? See if I can find one. This is a good one for ADHDers. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus on it. If I had my face. Too close? What level of care is too much for an everyday piece of clothing? In my world, pretty much any care. If I can't drop it on the floor and then pick it up the next day and put it on, and it's like a wrinkled mess, then it's too much. I don't do dry cleaning. I don't do ironing. I don't dress up. And I actually need to go shopping this week because we're presenting at this conference on Saturday, and I need to be a little bit more professional. As you can see, like, my uniform is like band t-shirts, and if I want to dress it up, I put a cardigan over it. But I need to get like some dress pants and kind of look professional because this conference is pretty professional. But I also cannot wear clothes that are uncomfortable and bother me, and sometimes I end up just changing in the middle of the day because like the neck's bugging me weird, or the arms are bugging me weird, or I can't wear jeans anymore. They drive me nuts, and it distracts my brain from being able to work if my clothes are too restrictive. So, yeah, what level of care is too much? Pretty much any level of care at this point, which is why I have a laundry service. So, yes, Tide to Go pens. I used to carry them. I used to have like 4 or 5 in my diaper bag when I had younger kids, and it was great for that. I forget to bring them around now. I don't wear very many light colored clothing because I spill on myself a lot. I also don't look great in pastels. It like washes me out. So dark jewel tones, they also hide stains better. Um, yeah, I don't have time to spend worrying about fabrics and laundry, and if I can't just throw it in the washing machine and the dryer, occasionally I could do like sweaters that have to lay flat, but I prefer not to because I send my laundry out, or my husband will do a load and he doesn't ever take those sort of things out of the washer. So if it can't go in the dryer or it will ruin it, it's a problem. So there we go. Pajama tops and a blazer. I love it. That's awesome. The blazer can cover a world of hurt. That's what happened to me, and the stain can be seen on my shirt. Yes. And the other problem is I'm always eating like in the car. So like I'm always like, oh crap, I gotta grab something to eat as I'm running out the door, and I'm always late, and yeah, I spill on myself all the time. So there's that. All right. So what do y'all want to talk about? Oh, I just thought about maybe doing a book review of some helpful books, or I have some other more fun articles that aren't as brainy, or we can do a body doubling session. I don't know. You guys are here? Tell me what sounds good to you. I'm going to figure out how to put a poll in the chat. I have to do that from, let's see if I can figure it out. Create a poll. Hey, I did it. I'm figuring this out. I'm going to hold on one second. I need to shut the door over here. No. Oh, it's interesting to see the delay. Let's see, does it show it in? Doesn't show it in StreamYard. All right, I'll give you guys a second to respond to the poll. And if you haven't yet, please like the video. See if maybe YouTube will put it out to a few more people. All right, looks like we're going to pull up a fun article. So let me find one of the ones that I have saved. I did find one. Where did it go? All right, let's do this one. Music and ADHD. Present. Share screen. This one. This is another one from Attitude. AttitudeMag.com is fantastic. Let's see. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Make it a little bigger. There we go. Okay, music therapy. This is talking about ways of treating ADHD naturally. My opinions on that are great. Find all the things that work for you. But there's no like badge of honor for I manage my ADHD without meds. Meds are great. I'm really grateful we have them. Why would I turn down something that can help so much? Now, meds don't do everything. Other therapies are needed. Combined approach is best, but I know these people are like, I treat my ADHD naturally. I'm not reliant on medication. Good for you. Whatever works for you, great. But there's no, I don't know, the kind of high and mighty look down your nose for people who rely on medication. Meds are awesome. If they work for you, amazing. Use some of these other things too. Because sometimes there's times like now where there's a medication shortage and maybe you can't get your meds for a few weeks and you have to ration them, and having other options is good. So that's how I feel about it, about the treating it naturally. Whatever, I think meds are natural too. Because they put the things in my brain that my brain needs naturally. Okay, music therapy, sound medicine for ADHD. Take note, music therapy builds better focus, self-control, and social skills in people with ADHD. Plus, you can incorporate these therapeutic benefits into day life for free, and that's music to our ears. Oh, how clever. Hold on. Sometimes the way they write these bugs me, but the information is good. Oh, Oliver Sacks. Nothing activates the brain so extensively as music, said the late Oliver Sacks, MD, neurologist, and author of Musicophilia. Oliver Sacks. Let's see, do I have that other book down here? Oh, let me look and see if I have it. Nope, it must be upset. So there was a book that we read in college by Oliver Sacks called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. It's a great collection of interesting cases. He was a neurologist. If you ever saw the movie from the 80s called Awakenings with, it was Robert De Niro, they go into a nurse, a care facility, people who are trapped in their brains, kind of in a comatose type state. Not comatose, but I can't think of the word. Anyway, it's a true story from Oliver Sacks. And they went and they found this medication that woke all these people up, but then it didn't work for very long. That was Oliver Sacks. So I will say it to all the people in all the land. Meds are awesome. And if we did not have them, I mean, legitimately, my children may or may not be alive because they do things like run into traffic and stupid things with knives and things like that when they don't have their meds. And I've recently started taking them and they're great and they help me get more done. And there's nothing wrong with that. I work with a kid with anxiety. They're trying to convince me that their meds are the only thing they need. And I'm like, no, kid, you need to do some skills because meds are going to fix everything. Meds are a tool. They should be one tool in a set of tools. Oftentimes meds are the first line because until those things are on board, you can't learn the skills, but learning the skills is still very important. But without the meds, they don't get through. Anyway, Oliver Sacks is great. Sacks documented the power of music to arouse movement in paralyzed Parkinson's patients, to calm the tics of Tourette's syndrome, and to vault the neural branches of autism. After his passing, his belief that music can heal the brain is still gaining favor, thanks in part to Gabrielle Giffords. So, January 2011, the Arizona congresswoman survived a gunshot wound to her left temple. If you're outside the U.S., I don't know if you know the story, but Gabrielle Giffords is a politician. She was giving a speech or some sort of thing outside. She was shot in the head and she survived. Because language is controlled by the brain's left hemisphere, Giffords was unable to speak. As part of her arduous recovery, she underwent music therapy, which trained her to engage the right side of her brain, pairing words with melody and rhythm to bring back speech. She was able to sing a word before she could speak a word, and the damaged areas of her brain were circumvented through music. Brains are amazing. The elasticity. It's so interesting because traumatic brain injury, we know like some things never recover and you're affected forever. But then things like this happen where your brain, even as a, we know that neuroplasticity slows down as you age. But this was not like a kid or a teenager whose brain is recovering in this way. Was able to rewire speech. It's amazing. They didn't used to think that it was possible. They thought if the brain was damaged after a certain age, that damage was done. There was nothing you could do. We know a lot more now. Now the neuroscience community right here is saying, yes, the brain changes, and yes, auditory stimulation can help those changes happen. Music therapy is used to help victims of severe brain trauma, children on the autism spectrum, and seniors suffering from Alzheimer's disease. For children with ADHD, music therapy bolsters attention and focus, reduces hyperactivity, and strengthens social skills. So, how does it work? I'm sure we all kind of know this, right? With music. It's why I create playlists and put things on to help me stay focused. For me, it keeps that monkey brain ADHD part occupied on something so that I can pay attention here. But let's talk about how it can help. Music provides structure. Music is rhythm, rhythm is structure, and structure is soothing to an ADHD brain struggling to regulate itself to stay on a linear path. Music exists in time with a clear beginning, middle, and end. For those of us who have severe time blindness, that's huge. That structure helps a child with ADHD plan, anticipate, and react. Music fires up synapses. Research shows that pleasurable music increases dopamine levels in the brain. Obviously, we all know this, right? Listening to a happy song or a song that you really like makes you happy, right? But we've got research on it. This neurotransmitter responsible for regulating attention, working memory, and motivation is in low supply in ADHD brains. Music shares neural network with other cognitive processes, says Patty Catalona, a neurological music therapist at MusicWorks Northwest. Through brain imaging, we can see how music lights up the left and right lobes. The goal of music therapy is to build up those activated brain muscles over time to help overall function. Just as Giffords used music to retrain her right brain to help her to talk, children with ADHD can use music to train their brains for stronger focus and self-control in the classroom and at home. Not just children. Music is social. Think of an orchestra, says Tamino, a 30-year veteran in music therapy. If one instrument is missing, you can't play the piece. All voices are necessary. This is what Hutchison teaches in social skills through music, an 8-week course for children ages 7 to 10. Students participate in ensemble playing, write collaborative songs, and practice for an end-of-session performance. Students learn to listen, take turns, anticipate changes, and pick up on cues in ways they might not do outside of a music therapy session. So this is interesting. had never seen this kind of, I'm going to have to look more into this research of social skills through music. I can say anecdotally, band has been amazing for my kid. Is it the playing the music itself that's helped him socially, or just being part of a group and having a place to belong, right? But this is a really interesting idea that participating in music, working on those things together, can actually teach those skills of taking turns, anticipating what's coming up, picking up on social cues. So I'm interested to see the kind of the generalizability of that. Like, does picking up on those kinds of cues in music actually translate into picking up on social cues? I imagine it uses similar parts of the brain when it's coming to like anticipating things. So that's interesting. I'll have to look more into that. What if board certified music therapists are hard to come by in your city, or the cost of music therapy is too high? The 8-week social skills program costs $224. That's pretty cheap, frankly. For 8 weeks? Here are a few effective everyday ways parents can use to harness music to help your children. So, turn off the TV. Kids with ADHD, people with ADHD, attend to everything. They are more sensitive to auditory stimulation and less able to tune things out, like television. Replace the chatter of Adventure Time with the calming rhythms of music. Tomino suggests experimenting with different styles, tempos, and artists to see what calms or rouses your child. Play Miles Davis while making dinner, the Beatles while doing a puzzle, or Beethoven while washing dishes, and pay attention to how your child reacts. Not just your child, right? Like, we all know different types of music can focus us in different ways, activate us in different ways. So keeping track of that, creating playlists with things that you know help you to be focused, super helpful. So play a lot of different types of music. I'm definitely one with a very eclectic music taste, so set the mood. Hearing songs of varying rhythms can slow down or speed up your child's mental and physical processes. By selecting songs carefully, you can trigger an intuitive neurological reaction that your child doesn't know he's having. Does Lady Gaga get your daughter moving? Play it after school to burn off excess energy. Does Moby slow down her pace? Play it before bed to begin the daily wind down. Rhythm, melody, and tempo are tools used to target non-musical behaviors to catapult change throughout the body. A change in rhythm can trigger a reaction in the brain. Oh, something's changed. I need to pay attention. You can bring down the tempo to spur slower movements, or bring up the melody to trigger pleasure. Create a playlist. Okay, so this is a great idea. I love this. This is probably my favorite tip in this article. Wash face, brush teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast. Sure, you could write out each step in your child's morning routine and tape it to the bathroom mirror, or you could download, create, and string together songs into a morning playlist that keeps him moving and reminds him to stay on task. I am so going to do this for one of my kids. He is like, music is the way his brain works, and he is the kid who will take a half hour in the shower, then he gets out of the shower and he's in his room just standing there for like 15 minutes until you come and you're like, hey, put on your clothes. Like, he needs reminders of every step, and he will get lost and distracted and brain just stuck, just not moving. So you have one song for each task. Okay, when this song is playing, this is what you do. And you play that same playlist as part of the routine. It's great. I can see this working for me too. I have got 2 songs for the shower, then 1 song to do, like, this is awesome. Let's see. When Rafi's brush your teeth hits its final note, he'll know it's time for a wardrobe change. And when Justin Bieber kicks in, it's time to pull up those socks and find the Nikes. Even better, write a getting dressed song with your child and sing it together every morning until it becomes second nature. That wouldn't work for my kids. Making a playlist and being like, this is the song, this is what you do during this song, might. Music facilitates multi-step processing when executive function deficits may make it difficult. So that song becomes the cue for the behavior. Bang a drum. When I work to extend a child's attention, I sit alongside him with a drum. I play a beat with clear phrases, the child repeats it, and we add beats each time. I'm asking him to listen, pay attention, and control his impulses. I'm also showing him that his turn is worth waiting for. I think this kind of thing is what is one thing that is super beneficial about playing instruments, being in an ensemble, things like that for kids with ADHD. Um, because they have to be paying attention to what's going on, right? They have to focus on the director, they have to focus on their music, they have to know when it's their turn and when it's not. I can tell you, my son who's in marching band does better in school during marching band season, which you would think would be difficult because he has practiced 3 to 4 hours, 4 days a week, or I should say 3 days a week, football games on Fridays and competitions all day Saturday. He really only has 1 day after school where he doesn't have anything marching band related. So when does he do homework? And he's taking hard classes. He's taking some continuing ed college classes, honors classes. He does better in school during marching band season, even though it's crazy and he doesn't have time for anything. Something about that, I think, kind of the order and the structure of it, but also I think just being involved in kind of the physical marching. He has two music classes that he's in, a jazz band and a symphonic band class that he's in all year. But marching band season is different. Parents need little more than an overturned pot, a wooden spoon, a sense of humor to try this at home. I can tell you the banging on things is not what I would do because it would trigger my auditory sensitivities, but I can bust out some music and sing along, do a dance party. Don't be a critic. Your child may insist that Metallica helps him study. Funny that that's the one, because my one kid who I was talking about, who wears his headphones all day long, Metallica is his favorite band. I remember when I was in high school, I used to listen to a lot of music, and I would listen to a lot of Metallica, Aerosmith, really like music like that. And it would drive my mom crazy that I was doing that while I was doing my homework. She's like, "You're not going to be able to focus. If you're going to listen to something, you need to listen to something like calm." And I was like, "I can't do my homework without this. Like, I need it." 30 years later, I'm diagnosed with ADHD, and it all makes sense. Why are we attracted to one song or one symphony over another? It's a complex and personal brain function that is immeasurable. Some children with sensory processing disorders prefer silence to music, but many individuals with ADHD say that background rhythm and melody help them to concentrate. What's playing through those headphones doesn't matter as much as its impact. If Eminem helps him focus, let it be. I'm more likely to concentrate in a buzzing coffee shop with headphones on than I am in a library. That is absolutely true. Like people who use noise machines to fall asleep, I use music to concentrate. Our American Idol. James Durbin does not have ADHD, but growing up with both autism spectrum disorder and Tourette syndrome, he suffered involuntary facial tics and debilitating social skills that made him a punching bag for bullies. I was teased, bullied, and picked on for being different, says Durbin, the third runner-up on the 2011 season of American Idol. Music was my shell. Inside, I could create a world as happy or sad as I wanted, and no one could tell me differently. Though he loved and mastered music from a young age, Durbin didn't learn to perform with others until he joined Kids on Broadway, a community theater group excuse me, in his hometown of Santa Cruz, California. When he landed the lead in a 2006 production of Grease, Durbin spent rehearsals avoiding eye contact and holding back rages. 5 years later, he was performing solos and group numbers for nearly 20 million American Idol viewers every week. I learned a lot about myself, and it made me stronger, says Durbin of his teen years in community theater and music education. For me, the answer was music. But I say, search yourself, search the world, and find what you love. That is what will ease the pain. So, music, band, marching band. It's amazing. There's another article that we won't go over today because my voice is running out. been sick, so I'm going to wrap up here fairly soon. Yeah, I got an article that talks about like different types of playlists that are useful for ADHD. I just try some things out. Make yourself some playlists. Start keeping track when you are listening to songs of which ones help you focus and which ones don't, which ones are activating, which ones aren't, which ones help you relax, which ones help you, keep track, make different playlists for yourself. If you haven't tried binaural beats, I recommend giving it a shot. I still haven't decided if it's the thing I like, but there's a lot of I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look at the research on binaural beats. I'm gonna write that down. My list of things. I got stacks of books everywhere. I'm a mess. I need to clean my office, but it's been crazy. I'm gonna write it over here. Video. Binaural beats. Research. It was kind of all the rage, like, I feel like 2 years ago, and I haven't heard as much about it since then. But yeah, if you haven't tried it, I know a lot of people who really feel like it completely calms their brain down. I haven't decided. Sometimes I like it, and other times it hurts my brain. So, music. Get your kids involved in music. Are there any questions? We've got a few more people here, it looks like. Hit the like button if you haven't yet. We can chat for a few minutes longer since we got some new people here. If you're new, drop a hi in the chat. We'd love to welcome you. Maybe we can talk a little bit of a random topic before my voice goes completely out. Let's go over here. And that poll. Alrighty. Well, I guess we can do one quick book review or book recommendation, since I've been reading up on some things. So, this series right here, Smart but Scattered. No, I don't need your input right now, Siri. Stop. I don't know if you guys heard that, but my computer's going nuts. Smart but Scattered. So this is the kids one, and this is the teens one, but they do also have. These books are by Richard Guary and Peg Dawson. They literally wrote the book on executive functioning. All the books. This one, clinical for schools. They have a planner that is not my favorite, but it has some useful resources in it. This one is their most recent book, Coaching Students with Executive Skills Challenges. If you work in a school and you work with these kinds of kids, buy this book. These are the people that I've been doing my certification program with for executive function coaching. And this is kind of like if you can't afford the $850 course, which is frankly way underpriced. Get this book because it is a step-by-step process. It just doesn't have the support of the group and of the instructors giving you feedback and helping you learn the process better. But you can change the lives of a lot of kids. I have given this to multiple teachers in our school district. I'm basically working on trying to get more of them to read it. Frankly, my goal is for our school district to have one trained executive function coach in every special ed department in all the secondary schools in our district, because it would be life-changing. Talk about how to help those twice exceptional kids. This is it. However, if you're not in the schools, or if you want to look into these books for yourself, I will grab the titles real quick of their other ones. There's one called Smart But Scattered and Stalled. And that one is kind of for what we call like the failure to launch kids, right? Like figuring out kind of what to do next. Let me pull up some descriptions of these. Smart but scattered and stalled. 10 steps to help young adults use their executive skills to set goals, make a plan, and successfully leave the nest. So if you have older kids or you find yourself in that situation, it's focused on kind of that learning how to set kind of life goals and figure out how to make decisions about what to do next. And we find in our clinic in particular, we get a lot of young adults who are in that phase with ADHD or autism, where they just don't know how to move forward, or they maybe tried going to school and it was too overwhelming, and they don't know how to kind of make that leap to relying on parents to kind of living and more independently. So that's a really good one. Their other one is called their most recent of the Smart But Scattered series is called Guide to Success, and that one is for adults. So the Smart But Scattered Guide to Success: How to Use Your Brain's Executive Skills to Keep Up, Stay Calm, and Get Organized at Work, at Home. This is the one that is for people like us, boosting your own executive skills, setting your own goals. It's the thing that's great about these. I'll use the teen one because it's the one I have right here. It starts with kind of explanations of the different areas of executive functioning, why you might be struggling with, and like some things that you might be struggling with and where they come from as far as executive skills and how they develop. Kind of earlier versus more advanced skills, kind of a little bit of background there, but then it helps you to assess your own strengths and weaknesses in your executive functioning. So it has some checklists like this, right? So you're going to go through, rate it 1 to 7, strongly disagree to strongly agree, acts on impulse, gets in trouble for talking too much in class. Well, this one's for teens, so I might have one in here that is more for adults. There's a lot of questionnaires in this one, but Okay, problem checklist: interrupts others when talking, blurts out inappropriate comments, can't complete daily routines within time limits, does not complete assignments by the due date. See, I don't see the value in earning good grades to achieve a long-term goal. I can't seem to save up money for something I want. If something fun comes up when I should be studying, it's hard for me to make myself study. I forget homework assignments or forget to bring home needed materials. I get annoyed when work is too hard or confusing or takes too long. I have a short fuse and easily frustrated. So it's going to take you through some checklists like that so that you can figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Because while we might have deficits in all of the areas, maybe you are great at flexibility and sustained attention, but you're not great at time management. And then it's going to assist you to set some goals in those specific areas. Small, measurable, achievable goals. Give you some examples of different goals you can use. So if you're looking for kind of a self-study, these Smart But Scattered books are our first recommendations. So there you go. We got a research article, we got a fun article, and we got a book review in. We did it in an hour and a half, and that's pretty awesome. And now I am going to have to stop because my voice is running out. I've got some other work I need to get done, but thank you so much for being here with us today. Remember to like, comment, to share. I got a few shorts that was able to put together that I need to just get posted. I will put, I did get one thing figured out, and that is an Amazon affiliate link. So let me look up Smart But Scattered Guide to Success, and I will drop that link. I do receive small commission on purchases made from the links I provide. I think, I don't know, I just got it set up. I haven't done anything yet, but Smart But Scattered Guide to Success. Here's a link. I'll pop it in the chat. I might be able to do some body doubling later. I have some work that I need to do that I can't do while streaming. If I'm able to get through some of that, then we can do some body doubling later today. If not, I will definitely plan on it later in the week. Keep an eye on the community page. I will post in there kind of what my schedule is going to be for the week. Had figured out what I wanted my weekly schedule to be like, and then I got sick, so now I'm kind of playing catch up, but we'll get there eventually. But we will do some body doubling later this week, and I will put a survey in to see kind of what time of day works best for people and if I can make that work with my schedule. So here's a link to, did that work? Let's see. Haha, it showed up. To the Smart But Scattered Guide to Success. I will also put it in the description. Maybe. Let's see if I can do that. No, I'll do it after the stream has ended. Okay, later in the week, we'll do some body doubling. I'll look at my schedule. I know I have some appointments this week, and we've got just a lot going on this week. So hopefully I will get back to 100% soon. I will pop the link in the chat or in the description also for this Smart But Scattered Guide to Success. If you want to check that book out, I'd appreciate it if you use my link. Channel isn't monetized right now, so we got to get to 500 subscribers is the first goal in order to be able to do that. And then I do have some ideas for what membership will look like once we get to that point. So if you know anybody who might find this content useful, please share. If not, liking, commenting, engaging with the channel will help us grow. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will roll the outro. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.